We are all afraid, but we're not all afraid of the same thing. So courage is at the epicenter of all transformation. So everything starts with courage. We all have different fears, but ultimately, courage is playing the game, quote unquote, of life all in. It's very hard to lean into all of who you are. If you're afraid you're not enough, it's very hard to just own that and then work on it. If you're afraid you're too much, it's very hard to own that and work on it and be authentic.
Hey, sales hunters, welcome to season 2 of Beyond the Business Plan, where heart meets hustle and every episode inspires you on your entrepreneurial journey. I'm LeAnn, Lyon, and together we'll chart new courses, tackle challenges, and celebrate those big wins with expert guests, honest stories, and plenty of joy along the way. If you love the show, tap follow, subscribe, leave a quick review, or join our conversation with hashtag JoyMinder, because your support helps us reach and inspire more entrepreneurs. Set sail on your business adventure with Beyond the Business Plan. After facing loss early on and surviving a near-fatal accident in his 20s, today's guest went from questioning everything to completely changing his life's direction. He left a comfortable corporate career to help others reach their next level in love, life, health, and wealth. Now, as CEO of the Next Level University podcast, a global top 100 show with thousands of episodes, Alan inspires listeners in over 180 countries. You are going to love hearing his story. Alan Lazaros, are you there?
Yes, I am.
He's coming forward. I can almost see him. Not quite, though.
My camera takes a minute. There I am.
There you are. It's good to see you.
Thank you. We started talking about this before we hit record of just gratitude, and it's an honor. So thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that awesome intro. And you mentioned our words matter, and I agree with you. Say things that matter to people who care. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Say things that matter to people who care. I love that. I like grabbing little quotes. I've always been really big into quotes. In fact, it's how my company ended up getting named JoyMinder. But that's another longer story for another time. Are you big into quotes and reading?
Very much.
Looks like you are.
Very much. Yeah. I've read many of the books in your background, actually. 12-week year.
Yep.
Sure. Yep.
We got Tony Robbins, John Maxwell. Yeah, so many back there. Of course, start with why.
Yep. I have several of those as well behind me.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, your entrepreneurial journey is really what we'll be talking about today, but you have another part of your journey that started at a much, much younger age, which I didn't mention in the introduction. A tragedy, really, that has impacted your life. You said you'd like to share a little bit about that. Would you like to?
Yeah, absolutely. So, tough start. It's a tough start. And so birth father was John McCorkle. And he was part of a big Irish Catholic family in Holden, Massachusetts, born and raised in Mass, myself and him. And it was Jim, Joe, John, Jane, Joan, Jeanette. So 6 kids, all beginning with J. And when he was 28 years old, I was 2 years old. I had an older sister who was 6. I had a mother who was 31. And tragically, suddenly, he died in a car accident, kind of out of nowhere. In 1991.
Wow.
So I was born in 1988. I was almost 3 years old. My sister was 6, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so it was very, very sudden, very tragic. My mom and sister, it was harder on them than it was on me, because obviously I was still an infant, so I didn't fully understand the implications of any of that. But then I had a stepfather who came into the picture. So his name was Steve Lazaros. That's where I got the last name Lazarus. Anyone who knows the last name Lazarus, it's a very Greek last name. And a lot of times people who are Greek will look at me and go, Lazarus? No, blonde hair, blue eye, And it's like, it's a long story. But so Steve Lazaros was in my life from age 3 to 14. And at 14, so I playfully refer to that part of my life as Boats and BS. And it was also
as what?
Boats and BS.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, it was during the 90s. And the reason I say boats and BS is because my mom and stepfather had what I would refer to as a pleasure-centered paradigm. They believe life is about having as much fun as possible.
Sure.
So I will high level say they ran amok, is what I would call it. We had boats and snowmobiles and a Ducati motorcycle, and we had a yacht, and it was the 90s .com bubble. So he worked for a company called AGFA. They did hospital computers during the .com era, and it was in the U.S. So a lot of people, maybe I'm sort of an economics nerd, so I'll share this. The largest economy on planet Earth by far is the United States. It's not even close, to be completely honest, and I only say that because a lot of people have been very shocked when I've shared that. But the reason I say that isn't to make anything great about the U.S. My point is that in the 90s, it was wild. The .com era was wild in terms of economic expansion, and so my stepdad worked for a company called AGFA, so we did very well. And so from the outside looking in, we looked very successful. From the inside out, my mom and stepdad did not get along, and that's a very polite way to put it.
Okay. Hey, sail setters, want to navigate your success with ease? Download the Sailing System, your practical guide to charting a course, setting goals, and growing with purpose. Find it now at joyminder.com or check the show notes below for your roadmap to results.
On a public medium. So they finally split up, which was good. Stepdad leaves, takes his entire extended family with him. Never seen or spoken to a single one of them since. I'm 37. I talked to him a little bit on Facebook Messenger in my 20s, a little bit more in my 30s. Never seen the man. Same year, 14 was the hardest year of my life. Sister moves out with her older boyfriend. Understandable. He gets the apartment building and the yacht. We get the house and the dog. And we go from boats and ski trips, Xbox, Dreamcast, well off financially, to I get free lunch at school now because our income is so low. My mom trades in her BMW for a little Honda Civic. How do we keep the house in the family? We don't have cable. We're not going to starve. We weren't going to starve, but it was definitely a drastic shift for me at 14. So I go from I hope I get into college, WPI, Worcester Polytechnic Institute, it's kind of like a mini MIT, to even if I do get in, I can't go because it's $50,000 a year. And this is back then, $50,000 a year back then.
Yeah.
So it's one of the best engineering schools in the world, and that was my dream. So I get straight A's through. So I had a trauma response. Now in hindsight, this is obvious to me. I'm 37 now. I've sort of reflected on my life. At 14, I think all that abandonment, because what I haven't shared yet is my mom gets in a fight with my Aunt Sandy, her sister, and we get ostracized from her side of the family. Same year.
Oh.
So to this day, I've seen or spoken to 2 human beings from that side. And we don't associate with the McCorkles much anymore because we're trying to be the Lazaroses, quote unquote, right? So normal was not going to be normal for me. So tough start. The first 14 years of my life, I mean, all I really knew was loss, challenge, just adversity. And I want to make this clear too. We did have a blast, and it's kind of interesting too because we vacationed and we had boats and all that. So I think I expanded and learned a lot, and I was really good at stuff. But ultimately, I had 2 trauma responses when my stepdad left. And this is in hindsight. I didn't know this at the time. So there's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And fawn is the one I didn't know about. So So after abandonment, I basically decided to become this chameleon. Don't lose any more friends and family. Don't lose any more friends and family. Don't lose any more friends and family. And that was unconscious. I obviously didn't decide that consciously.
And that word is fawn, F-A-U-N?
F-A-W-N.
F-A-W-N. Okay, got it.
So everyone knows fight and flight.
Yeah.
There's freeze and fawn as well.
Freeze and fawn.
And fawn is the rare one that no one really knows about. I didn't until my 30s, and I realized you just basically become this person who appeases others to try to make the relationship work because you're afraid of abandonment unconsciously, right?
Got it.
And so, but here's the thing. So behind the scenes, so we live in 2 worlds, and I'll be brief about this, but I've done all this coaching, and now I realize this is the 2 worlds. You've got the social world, which is your reputation, social media, the economy, the external world. I always use this. I said, and then you've got the real world. The best metaphor I've ever done to explain this is the social world is the wedding photos.
Yeah.
The real world is the actual marriage.
Yep.
And if you get those mixed up, you are in so much trouble. And we've all been there, right? In high school, we care more about our reputation than we do our real life. And that's why we get all screwed up. But anyways, so socially, I became a coward, for sure. Just dim, appease, don't, But behind the scenes, when no one was around, it was just fight. It was prove myself, aim higher, work harder, get smarter. You wouldn't believe the drive that I had. And so I got straight A's through all of high school. I got into college. I got all the scholarships and financial aid I possibly could. I got what's called the President's Award. It's behind me, signed by George W. Bush. And I just became this sort of super achiever guy who just crushed it. And then I graduated with high distinction, computer engineering, got my master's in business. I worked for a whole bunch of tech companies, iRobots, Sensata Technologies, Oz Development, a company that used to be Texas Instruments, that's Sensata. I eventually landed a company called Cognex. And at the end of the day, 21st century, this is after '08, so the economy's coming back. I have a computer engineering degree with an MBA. And I just crushed it in corporate. So I did the traditional preschool, kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, high school, college, corporate path. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely crushed it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was what was going to make me fulfilled and all that kind of stuff. Then, and this is the part that you mentioned in the intro, I get in a car accident in my 20s. So I'm 26 at the time. I get in a head-on collision, my fault. Not a fender bender. We're doing 30. Head-on collision, cross the double yellows, bad. Fortunately, no one was killed, because if anyone was killed, it would have been my fault. However, this is the second chance my dad never got. Right. So that was my existential quarter-life crisis of just, okay, so I'm going to reevaluate. And that's when I started to reflect, and I started to face all my pain and my trauma and my adversity, and I started to understand my childhood and understand where I came from and understand myself, others in the world, and I just went all in on personal development and personal growth and self-improvement after that. Because I realized I was wildly unfulfilled. I was super successful. Mm-hmm. I made almost $200,000 a year. I had $150,000 in a Vanguard account with all stocks and tech companies, and I had paid off $84,000 worth of college debt in a single year back in 2014. So I was very externally successful, but not internally fulfilled. And I feel like a lot of people end up in that space because a lot of us are achieving not in alignment with what we really want to do in the world. And so I have these 4 buckets of life. These are really kind of why I'm here. I try to help people with these. So the first one is, bucket 1 is where we all start. You are unsuccessful and unfulfilled. Everyone can remember a time where you are unsuccessful and unfulfilled. So when I was 14, stepdad left. I was 15, 16. I was a car kid and a bus boy. I was not successful. I was making minimum wage and I was unfulfilled as hell. Then I chased success. I achieved it. I was a global top 1% earner in my early 20s. So then I was externally successful, but internally unfulfilled. So I went from unsuccessful and unfulfilled to super successful and still unfulfilled.
Then
the script. Yeah, nice. Okay. Then I get in my car accident and I flip the script. Fitness model, fitness competitor, fitness coach, start my own company, Lazaros LLC, what you'll never learn in school but desperately need to know. I want to bring personal development to the school systems because I didn't understand why I wasn't taught anything about personal development in particular. But then I went broke. So now I'm happy, healthy, unbelievably fulfilled. I love the work I'm doing in the world, and I'm so over the moon happy. It's not even funny, but I'm broke. So I can't sustain it. So I went from successful externally and internally unfulfilled to bucket 3, which is I am super fulfilled. I'm happy, healthy, productive, but I'm not externally successful.
Can relate.
Right, there we go. Okay, nice. And then eventually over time, we started our company, my Lazaros LLC, and it took me a long freaking time. It took me to my early 30s. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, that's actually pretty early. But it wasn't until I turned 30 that I really had both, where I was both externally successful and it was aligned with who I aspire to be on the inside as well. And I honestly think bucket 4 statistically speaking, as an engineer, is just wildly rare. It's so hard to get to bucket 4. It really is, because most people, statistically speaking, are either super fulfilled inside and at home they're fulfilled, but then at work they're not, or at work they're fulfilled and at home they're not. It's very hard to achieve both external success and internal fulfillment because they're two completely different skill sets, and I'm hoping we can get into that.
Yeah, well, it's so, I love everything that you shared. Thank you so much. And you're just sharing so deeply and as everything that's happened in your life. Just a point of connection. I was also in a head-on car collision at age 17. I was driving, not my fault. It was a drunk driver who hit us 50 miles per hour, both of our cars.
Oh, wait, you both hit head on 50?
50 head on.
No. Yeah.
And he was driving a truck drunk. His truck actually, I watched it go up into the air. And then instead of coming all the way over onto us, it did cartwheel off into the ditch. He was drunk with 2 kids in his vehicle. Everybody, he got a cut. But in my car, both my parents ended up with broken backs. My dad was we came very close to losing him with internal injuries. And I had a scrape on my shoulder and a cut on my knee. Almost unbelievable how protected I was. There was some other trauma there I'm not going to go into on this call, but yeah, but they're life-changing moments. And what's interesting for me is that up until that point, I'd had like this idyllic, like so good, like mom, dad, sister, perfect life, travel, middle class, very middle class. But my parents just loved us deeply and took us places. And, we drove that station wagon all the way to Texas, and all this stuff. We didn't fly. My first flight, I was 11 years old when we flew out to Los Angeles for the first time ever. TWA was the airline. It doesn't even exist anymore.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I looked this up, and I think this will be just powerful for anyone out there listening. And the stats have gotten way better, luckily. But back then, it was 40,000 deaths per year in motor vehicle accidents. And that was back in 2015. So fortunately, cars have gotten a lot safer. And yeah, people are scared of snakes and spiders and sharks. And
yeah,
I've looked up all the stats. There's only one shark death out of 350 million Americans. There's only one shark death per year, right? So it's very... Right. The most dangerous thing we do is get into a car.
For sure.
And I'm just, obviously grateful that we're both here. So,
yeah. And then at age 20, was invited to go to a movie with my then boyfriend. I told him, no, go ahead. In fact, take this other person with you. I don't want to go. They were both killed by a drunk driver that night.
Whoa.
So I've really survived. I say I survived 2 drunk driving accidents because I just wasn't in the car that I was very much invited and even wanted to be in at the moment. So interesting. But that one, you just don't know. And again, we're going to get back to your story because all of what happened to you is now impacting, all of your listeners and all of the people that you work with. Well, in that case, his father was a legislator here in Minnesota. The woman with him, her father was a legislator in South Dakota. And because of them and because of their deaths, the deaths of their children, that is when the drunk driving law came down to 0.08.
Whoa.
Right after. I mean, they both introduced legislation in their states. I don't know exactly that it changed right then, but it was part of the movement in the late 80s, early 90s to make it a uniform drunk driving platform. So I think going through these things, they're so hard. Usually you don't get to look back and say, I understand now why I had to go through that or why this had to happen. I'm blessed, I really feel, that I could understand it from, while here. I don't have to wait till an afterlife to figure out, oh, that's why that happened. But yeah, it's very interesting. But to your point about self-development and the rarity of getting to both being fulfilled and successful. It is. I think you are right. I think a lot of people are one way or another. In fact, somebody I work with right now is transitioning jobs away from somebody where he's extraordinarily unfulfilled at work to a much better company with a much better culture. And it's changing his home life too. I mean, just intrinsically changing his home life. Not that there was a bad home life, but a bad work life just didn't leave him with any energy for much to pour back into home.
If there's nothing else we need, it's more fulfilled human beings. I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's really the underpinning of why I do what I do. I'm a success company now, next level, success, goal achievement, reverse engineer your goals and dreams. People come to you for what they want. They stick around for what they need. And people come to me because they want me to help them grow their company, and I'm grateful. I have 23 one-on-one clients right now, all business owners. But ultimately, what they really want is to be fulfilled. And sometimes people come to me where the company is not aligned with who they are, and sometimes they are not aligned with the company. And basically, if you build a company and a career on something that isn't who you really are, you're basically going to be unfulfilled, even if you are successful. Mm-hmm. And everyone faces that at some point. That's why I call it my quarter life crisis, because my car accident happened at 26. And for me, that just absolutely shifted my perspective forever, because my father didn't get that second chance. I knew after that, I was like, I'm going to put it all on the court, and I'm going to live courageously and authentically. And I'm going to be the change I wish to see in the world. And not just because it's a Gandhi quote, but because that's the only way I'm ever going to be fulfilled. And that's actually why I'm here right now, quite frankly, is because, yeah, I could, sell Oura rings or work at tech XY company, but it's not who I'm meant to be. And I only fulfillment. I think fulfillment is a byproduct of alignment with your highest self. And I think that when we aren't aligned with our highest self, I feel like we're wildly unfulfilled. I've certainly been there. And so I orient my life around fulfillment and meaning, and then I hope success will be a byproduct. Unfortunately, it has. However, when you orient your life around meaning and growth and contribution and fulfillment, you tend to not be successful right away. It takes time.
Yeah. In fact, I think I'm hearing a few things. We talked about books earlier, but traction, if you're familiar with the EOS system, that definitely talks about if you're able to start everything out, know what your values are first, build your business on your values. And then before we started recording today, we talked a little bit about courage and what that takes. So we're going to get right back into that after just a quick break. Hey, sales setters, do you need energy without the crash? Check out the lifestyle section in our resources on joyminder.com/resources for delicious, healthier coffee alternatives to boost your focus and fuel your hustle. Skip the jitters, love your brew. You can also go directly to whyilovemycoffee.com, and I'll see you there. And we're back. I am so pleased to be here with LeAnn Lazaros. We have been digging into more of a personal story so far, talking about, what we've been through, challenges we faced prior to even getting into entrepreneurship. LeAnn has talked a little bit about being in entrepreneurship, but before our call today, we actually mentioned the word courage. And on a recent road trip, I went a 2,500-mile road trip from Minnesota to Georgia and back. It was wonderful. We listened to Brendon Burchard's book, High Performance Habits. And as much as you are into personal development, I'm seeing you're not. I'm pretty sure you're familiar.
Very much.
Courage is the sixth habit that he mentions.
Yeah. It's a great book.
Yeah. So what's so how does courage play into your story and also your decision to step into entrepreneurship or your success?
Yeah, I don't think any meaningful progress really happens without some level of courage. I realize over my career of coaching, my magic number is 11,645. I call it my magic number because I coach, I train, and I podcast. I have 11,645 hours of coaching, training, and podcasting. I'm not saying that for anyone else other than I have credibility of that many hours with that many people from all over the world, all different industries, all different backgrounds, all different countries. You just start to recognize things that are principles apply to all of us, but not the same. And so in coaching, one-on-one coaching, what I've found is the medicine that will cure one patient will also harm another. And we are all afraid, but we're not all afraid of the same thing. And so fear holds us all back. But the three core fears, or core wounds that I call them, that I've sort of uncovered in my work, is all of you is not enough. That's the most common fear. All of me is not enough. All of me is not enough. All of me is not enough. That's the common one. And if that's you, you most likely fit in most rooms. You most likely feel like you belong in most rooms. You most likely are easily likable. You most likely have a lot of friends, and you most likely get along well with people easily. But you feel like you're not going to be successful. You're afraid you're not going to be successful. You don't believe in yourself a ton behind the scenes, even though you might pretend to around other people. Okay. So for anyone listening, if that's you, that's okay. I'm not making these right or wrong. I'm just saying self-identify is the first step. The second one, which brings me back to the courage question. So those people need the courage to overcome their fear of failure. And to be seen as a failure is that core wound of all of me is not enough. The deepest fear they have, those people, is they don't want to be seen as a failure. So they're always trying to be seen as super competent, when in reality, behind the scenes, they actually don't really believe in themselves a ton. And I always say this: why would someone with level 10 confidence have level 2 goals? A lot of times it's inflated and it's not real. It's a protective mechanism. And so that person has to go fail and fail publicly. And I know it's going to be hard, but once you overcome that fear, it takes courage. It takes courage to step on stage. It takes courage to launch a product or a business. And you basically have to fail forward repeatedly. The second core wound is, core fear, is all of me is too much. So that one's mine. I'm dialing down my intensity pretty much all the time when I'm around other people. And when I'm behind the scenes, it's just so much tenacity and so much drive and so much wanting to reach my full potential. So go ahead.
Oh, I want to share, my sister and I actually share that. We've talked about that in the past. And there is a video that we were sharing back and forth, because sometimes we need it, where it's just said, you know what? You say I'm too much for you? Go find less.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's exactly what it is. So the thing is the people who have a lot of drive and a lot of self-belief, who really want to reach their full potential, they are kind of too much for a lot of people. Because if you have someone who believes in themselves a ton around someone who doesn't believe in themselves at all, the person who believes in themselves a ton will dim in order to be like not as intimidating. And the person who believes in themselves a lot is going to puff up. And that way they manufacture belonging. But it's not real, and so eventually that ends up hurting each other. It's kind of a whole thing. But so the first one is all of you is not enough, which you need to have courage to fail. Fail forward, fail publicly, fail often, like go try and fail. The core wound of people who all of me is too much, you basically have to have the courage to shine. You have to have the courage to actually own it. And you're not allowed to call yourself smart, but in high school I was really smart, and college and all that. And the social world, for someone who does believe in themselves a ton, who's afraid to be too much, is very challenging. So usually we dial down. No, I'm not that great. No, I'm not that driven. No, it's all you're great. And so these people are triggering each other all the time. Those are the first two fears. The third one is fascinating. And the third one is the rarest. And the third one is all of me does not belong. So these are the people that party hop. They go from circle to circle to circle to circle. They feel like they don't really belong anywhere, but they're super authentic. They trigger people because they're so authentic. But it's almost like they have this glass wall where everyone can see all of them, but they never let anyone close to their heart. And they see the first two core wounds hurting each other constantly, so they just kind of opted out. They struggle a lot with vulnerability. They struggle a lot with... So the three titles that I have in Next Level University, we call the first one defective. And don't get hung up on the name, because obviously it's going to be triggering. If you are a defective, you're going to feel defective. It's
right.
Yeah. So the first core one we call defective. The second one we call unlovable. That one's mine. And then the third one is unwanted. We all have all three, but we have one really big one. So the defectives are afraid all of me is not enough. That's my business partner, Kevin. And his overcoming of that needs to be just fail forward and be seen as less and be okay with it. The second one, the unlovables, all of me is too much. You have to be willing to shine. You have to be willing to compete. You have to be willing to be smarter than, be better than, be more capable, believe in yourself and own it. And the third one is all of me does not belong. And that person needs to be vulnerable and actually risk being hurt, because they basically keep everyone a little bit at a distance, but they're very, very, very authentic. So the defectives inflate socially to try to feel better than they are. The unlovables deflate to fit in, and the unlovables opt out and they omit. Unwanteds. They omit and opt out, and they say, you know what, I'm playing my own game, but I'm never going to let anyone too close because I'm too scared to get hurt. And all of us, they're just protection mechanisms for all of us. So courage is at the epicenter of all transformation.
That's fascinating. I'm again, most of my listeners would know, I'm closer to 60 than 50. And there is a point in life too where I empty nested. My children are no longer home with me. My husband and I have been married for 30 years. We're very comfortable and we're very happy. And we just have a lot more flexibility in our lives. But I think there just reaches a point where a lot of my friends, similar age, we all just say, you know what, we're just kind of done with any of the games.
Yeah.
We're like, yeah, we're just kind of the whole wise woman thing, or however you want to see it. You get to a point where you're like, you know what, I'm just done. I don't really care what anybody thinks anymore. You kind of realize at some point, and it would be great to realize this a little earlier, a little younger, as you have, I think, that, it's a big world. There are lots of people. If this is not your tribe, there is another tribe out there. Maybe that's the hopping thing a little bit, but there's value in being who you are authentically. I believe that we're called, that who we are and our gifts, our talents, everything is put into us before we're born. I also wrote a computer program when I was 11. I mean, I have these skills, I was curious about how people get connected, even at a very young age. And what am I doing today? Oh, my courage move of the week, though. See this here? Black belt. Been talking about getting my second degree for years and years and years. Nice. But I blew out my ACL the night before testing for it before. Signed up for classes again.
Nice.
That's my courage move. Stop talking about it. Start doing. And that, again, comes from the kind of Brenda Bouchard talking and saying, look, set what your big goals are and know what your 5 moves are and put dates on them when you're going to accomplish them. It's not enough to say, I'm going to get my second degree black belt. I'm going to get my captain's license and drive a boat. Okay. When?
100%.
Stop talking, start doing.
The courage to be yourself in all of what you are is what I'm talking about with the fear. Like, the fear is different, the insecurity is different, the shame is different, the core wound is different for all of us.
Yeah.
But those are the 3 main ones, and either way, all of us require, I call it the triad of transformation, require humility, courage, and vulnerability in order to transform. So everything starts with courage. I don't think you put that black belt up there and talk about it without courage. Or you can, and that's not your fear. Maybe your fear is getting close to someone or whatever. So we all have different fears, but ultimately, courage is playing the game, quote unquote, of life all in. And I've shared things on this podcast that I absolutely don't want to share, to be completely honest. But the reason I do is because I know I'm supposed to. I know I should. I do the world a disservice by not telling the truth about all of who I actually am. And that takes so much courage because everybody's got an opinion, and you mentioned being, near 60, and I'm 37 years old, about to be. And there's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of judgment. It's very hard to lean into all of who you are. If you're afraid you're not enough, it's very hard to just own that and then work on it. If you're afraid you're too much, it's very hard to own that and work on it and be authentic and just own it. I'll give you one example just to share this. So Emilia and I, we've been exercising every day for 3.7 years. And we started March 1st of 2022, and we haven't missed a single day. And the reason I'm sharing that is if you are a defective, you think I'm sharing that to flex. If you're an unlovable, you can't believe I'm sharing that because I shouldn't say that because that's how you get hated. If you're an unwanted, you're like, hell yeah, own it, own it. But easy for you to say because you don't have my fear, which is being villainized, because most people can't even exercise consistently for a week and a half, and here I am 3.7 years in. So it's very easy to be hated. So the first core wound is afraid they're not enough.
Yeah.
The second core wound is afraid to be hated. And the third core wound just opts out and is like, listen, you two can do this all day. I'm not even gonna play. I'm gonna play my own game over here. But because of that, they struggle with connection and they feel like they don't have a lot of deep relationships.
Wow, I love it. This is, and you're sharing things that I've not heard, and I've done a lot of personal development work. This is a Tony Robbins Life Mastery Completion. I'm John Maxwell certified. I've got the stuff. I've learned the things. I continue to develop. Reading Brendan Burchard's book while on vacation is not exactly relaxing. However, I will say,
I love it.
yeah, I also read Dan Brown's new book, The Secret of Secrets. I don't know if you enjoy his work, but that was fascinating too. If you want kind of a mind-bending book, that's also a commentary on today's world. It is fascinating about where is our mind? Is it in here or is it here? Is it external or is it internal? Because yeah, it's a really interesting book. If somebody said, could you access any, can you imagine a device that has every bit of knowledge in the universe and it's the size of a deck of cards? We can, because it's right in our hand most of the time.
Right there.
But it's not really in here at all.
Exactly.
It just
in the world
accesses it, which, the question is, where are we accessing all of everything we've been talking about? So I love mind-bending things like that.
I appreciate the curiosity. I think an open mind is the first step to all growth. So
well, as we kind of get towards the end here, because the time has just flown by listening to all this, it's been fascinating. And when you stepped into entrepreneurship, when you decided to leave the comfy world, initially, was it to step into entrepreneurship, or was it just you needed a break?
It was a hard stop for me.
Okay.
It was I am done with corporate for the rest of my life.
Okay.
And when I say done with corporate, I'm still going to end up working with corporate, but I'm done with the traditional corporate path.
Having a boss.
Yeah, basically. Technically I have 117 clients, so I have 117 bosses. But I see what you're saying. But I did have a hard line in the sand of, okay, I know why I'm here. I know what I'm here to do. I'm here to reach my own unique potential. Unique is the key word, and help others do the same. And I'm going to do that through success and personal development. And Tony was a big inspiration for me early on. And I now have actually, I've studied his whole career, and I haven't met him, but I now realize I'm very different than him. My engineering background is very different. He does not have a math background. That's very clear. But ultimately, yeah, see, you laugh. But ultimately, you have to find yourself in all of it. And I knew that I was going to be on this mission. And it still is the same as what it was. Alan Lazaros LLC, what you'll never learn in school but desperately need to know. You already mentioned on this episode, these are things you've not heard. Those are my own scientific method of the last 11 years, compounded with 11,645 podcasts, coaching sessions, and trainings, where I just realized over time that there are these common patterns, these common core wounds, these common fears. And we've created some tools and understandings that at Next Level University that I actually think are entirely organic, homegrown from us. And I'm sure it's like therapy. There's CBT, there's IFS, there's DBT. There's all these different modalities of frames to look through, but we're all trying to express the same truth. We're all trying to understand ourselves, others, and the world. And ultimately, I knew that I was done with the traditional path after that car accident because I knew I could never go back and be fulfilled.
So hard stop, definitely done with the corporate, at least being employed, W-2, let's call it.
Yeah.
And then, but developing, being done and actually creating Next Level University, what's the time gap in there?
Alan Lazaros LLC was almost right after the car accident.
Okay.
I quit the company Cognex I was working for at the time. I was doing extremely well. I was an outside sales engineer, Vermont, Connecticut, Western Mass. And then I started a podcast called Conversations Change Lives, and it was be a fly on the wall and learn what you'll never learn in school but desperately need to know. And my first guest was Kevin, my business partner. And he had me on his podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast, Change the Way You Think, Change the Way You Act, Change the Way You Live. And so he was my first guest, I was his first guest, and then we teamed up and we had the worst titled podcast of all time, which was the Hyperconscious Podcast meets the Conversations Change Lives meets Hyperconscious Podcast.
Excellent.
And we thank you. We did that for 20 weeks, and then we went all in on the Hyperconscious Podcast. We did that for 1 episode a week, then 2 episodes a week, then 3 episodes a week. We eventually got to 5, then 7, started a team. Now we have a 20-person team. We produce over 70 podcasts. We have 117 podcasters and business owners that we paying clients every month. And it's just grown and scaled from there. But ultimately it was, okay, he and I grew up in the same small town. He and I were both very curious as to why we were so unfulfilled before. Yeah. And we had character over everything was our motto. And we just started building our character. And we were broke. And then the first 2 years, we only made $13,000 in the first entire 2 years living in Massachusetts. I mean, that is just poverty. And we made it work. And then, over time, now we're 8 years in and we're we make more than that in a month now by far. And so you just kind of go all in and figure it out. And we had tons of mentors and coaches and we read every goddamn book. And you just learn over time through just massive pain and failure that most of it is garbage. Some of it has merit. And basically what really wins is consistent strategy, systems, execution, metrics, habits, and skills. And I think that the esoteric is important to understand, but I find a lot of people, business owners, they can get lost in the sauce, so to speak, and not actually execute in terms of, so 2,200 episodes, for example, like 90% of my success comes down to that. We just never stopped. We do an episode every single day, and we haven't missed in 8 years. So 90% of our success is just purely consistent work ethic and constantly going back to the drawing board. And then we have a book club, we do master classes, like all kinds of stuff. So it just grows, and you just can never stray too far from the core of who you are. Because if you do, you're in so much trouble. And it's like a pendulum. You swing away from true self, and then you overswing back. But as long as you keep coming back to your own sort of center, you're going to be successful over time, assuming you stick with it and keep improving.
Well, my final question is going to be, but first of all, it's going to be that, what advice do you have to that person who's thinking about starting or who has started, but they're just not getting the success that they need? But I also want to say, anybody wanting now to connect with Alan, logical, be sure to check underneath wherever you're watching this. If you're on YouTube, then you can see all the books behind him and those interesting statues and lots of degrees and all sorts of stuff on the walls. If you're listening on a podcast, you're missing out on that. Come on over to YouTube and check it out. Give us a like or subscribe, and you're going to be able to find all the links to connect with Alan as well. So Alan, what piece of advice would you offer those? Let's talk about burned out professionals for a minute. They went to school when they were 20 years old. They got the degree.
Yep.
They have the success. They're unfulfilled. Wait, isn't that who we've been talking about this whole time?
Yes.
Because that was me too. I got a degree as a teacher, and then I realized I was in a room with no windows in Minnesota and never saw the light of day for weeks at a time in the middle of winter.
Well,
and so unfulfilled, unhappy, and never went back to it after I left. So what advice would you give to those types of people?
I think we have this framework we call passion into purpose into profit, and I don't want to go into necessarily the long-winded answer, but I would say a lot of people that I've found is they're like, well, I love cooking, but I don't want it to feel like work. I think that holds people back tremendously. I do. If you are super passionate about cooking, you can be a chef. And trust me, it's going to feel like work, but it's way better than work you hate. So for me, I'm obsessed, and I use the word obsessed on purpose, with fitness, personal development, and business. I always have been. And so I built my entire life around it. And if you go to my Instagram, that's all you're going to get: fitness, personal development, and business. And I think that passion and obsession is where you need to start. Because I know some people who are obsessed with country music. I could care less, right? If you were to work in that industry, you would do so much better than me just by default. And so try to design your future around your passions. And I'm not saying that as the passion gets thrown around a lot. I mean, what is the thing that you're so obsessed with that you just keep wanting to do? Because if it is fulfilling, you're going to be so good at it. Yeah. Like for me, I podcast, coach, and train. And podcasting is 1 to scale. That's what I'm doing right now. Training is 1 to several. And coaching is 1 to 1. So Kevin and I, we both podcast, train, and coach. But I am a coach first, trainer second, podcaster third. So I don't like casting a wide net. I like one-on-one systems, structure, discipline. Like I like to get one-on-one with people. So most of my calendar is one-on-one coaching. So yes, I podcast, but it's hard for me to cast a wide net. Obviously, you've noticed. Kev, he's the people's people. He's at the center of the bell curve. Everybody loves Kev. I am this weird esoteric weirdo who you only come to for a clear, specific reverse engineering your goals and dreams. And most people tolerate me because they want more success. Everybody likes Kev, but he didn't feel respected. And a lot of people don't come to him as much as they do for me for success. So the point that I'm making with all of this is Kev's amazing. I'm great. We're all great in our own right. But you can't design your career on a weakness. And you can't design your career on something you aren't deeply passionate about. Because I have 11,645 coaching sessions, trainings, and podcasts. And the only reason I've been able to stomach every one of those over the last decade is because they're so meaningful to me. I am so obsessed with coaching people. And even when I wasn't a coach, I was always the one doing people's resumes and helping them get jobs and career development and professional development and all that stuff. So be who you are and try not to build a career on something that isn't authentic.
Beautiful. Well, we started with a great quote. I think we just ended with a great quote as well. Thank you so much, Alan, for being here, for your generosity of sharing. I look forward to continuing to connect with you. Connection, that's what I love to do. I call it find your joy. Find your joy.
LeAnn, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And to our guests, we would like to thank you for joining us on the show, Beyond the Business Plan, to unleash your joyful business potential. Unleash it. Remember, entrepreneurship is a voyage that you can take with others. So find your tribe for the journey and give us a like, subscribe, or whatever you do on your favorite podcast or video platform to keep shining and aligning with your purpose and Joyminder Solutions. And come on back next week. Until next time, I'm LeAnn Lyon, your Chief Joy Officer, signing off. Let's keep spreading the joy, keep leading with heart, and I'll catch you on the next wave of success. Hey, sales setters, are you ready to launch or refresh your business? Join us at the very next Beyond the Business Plan Summit for breakthrough strategies and inspiration. Visit joyminder.com/summit or check the link in the show notes for our incredible list of speakers and topics, and let's go beyond business plans together. Thank you for sailing with us, sales setters. Remember, your journey goes beyond the business plan. So keep charting your own course, leading with heart, and tuning in for more joy and inspiration. Find all the resources and connections in the show notes below, and your support means the world to us. So join our conversation at #Joyminder or simply share your favorite takeaways in the comments section below. Until next time, set your sails for success.